world is hard now more than ever. And I guess, again, you're probably the best person to talk to about this because you have the knowledge of pre-social media, during social media, and then today's world. Three different worlds.
And life, I think, was much easier in some respects. Okay. And I think young people do need to contend with many more aspects but it's not that older people, didn't then. But then again, older people do need to contend with it these time, in this day and age, so to speak.
Yeah. So I guess my generation, we were on the edge of, I probably had 10 years, maybe 15 years before social media. So I've learnt how to use it. You got the kids coming through now that are born into it. And then the generation above me didn't have it for a long time and trying to understand it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to resilience in children, it's obviously going to be different to how their parents experienced resilience when they were growing up.
Yeah.
First, we probably should define resilience. So when I say the word resilience, how do we define that?
Yeah. Well, I view resilience, from a particular perspective, okay? And when it comes to definitions, there are many, many definitions of resilience. And when you review the literature on resilience, what one finds is that this construct or concept originated from engineering.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Where this is one view, and that you're talking about materials being resilient. So in other words, not breaking, being malleable, being able to stretch, for example, the wire. Okay? So in other words, you've got buildings that are resilient. There are definitions that focus on communities. Resilient Victoria, resilient villages, resilient communities that have been affected by flood, fire. So we can look at resilience from a macro perspective. But there's also the micro perspective, the individual. What makes individuals resilient? And what is resilience when you talk about individuals? But also, what are firms, a firm, and what might make a firm resilient to the turbulence, the uncertainty that we're facing at the moment. Okay? And so getting back to how I view it, and this is really based on the work of a number of PhD students that I've had that have looked at this area. And the perspective, and it's one of many that I take, is that resilience isn't a single construct. And I think people tend to view it as something as a single construct. It gets back to what I'm repeating over and over again. It's a multi-determined construct. And I regard resilience as a dynamic capability, a capacity. And it involves a number of capacities, a number of capabilities. And can we focus on the individual, for example? And so this might be the capability to bounce back to a previous level. It might mean the capability or the capacity, the asset, the skill to adapt. So resilience involves the ability to change, to be flexible, to be adaptable, to actually be able to scan your environment. It also means being able to identify the consequences, identify the opportunities, okay? But also to identify the risks associated with taking particular actions. And it's being able to put all of these capabilities together in a dynamic way that enables a person, I think, to be resilient. So it is insufficient to just focus on the unitary or the single component. So you are assisting a person in therapy, or a person in the gym where you might work, to develop some of these skills, some of these assets that they can apply to their day-to-day life. Excuse me.
No.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Go for it. And what you described makes perfect sense. And hearing it, I've had so many light bulbs go off. Like, we're taught, again, it's probably social media is probably the biggest issue. We're told resilience is like almost the opposite to what you said. Be a brick wall, be unbreakable, don't move, like don't give anything, and like whatever bangs up against you, you've just got to repel it, and that is resistance. That's almost the vibe of the word within the social media realm.
Yeah.
So what you've explained is just absolutely beautiful. It makes perfect sense, and why wouldn't that be more resilient?
Yeah, and let's take a biological or an ecological perspective. Okay, and again, you're drawing on these different perspectives or theoretical aspects, and we talk about Darwinianism, okay, and his theory of evolution, and how he developed the evolutionary perspective from visiting a number of different countries, including Australia and the Galapagos Islands, and how similar species developed depending on their environment. They developed in a particular way based on what was available to them ecologically, the environment that they were living in. There was this adaptability, this ability to be flexible, but that also influenced their genes. And so they developed a particular morphology, appearance. And so what I'm getting at is that there is this beautiful dance, this interaction between environments, what you're exposed to, and your genes. And this, I guess, competition between famous biologists like Mendel and Lamarckianism. So what affects what? I'm been working with a highly intelligent PhD student who's looking at this issue of narcissism and what might be the genetic or biological determinants of that. And she's been able to identify a cluster of genes associated with it. But what I've learnt from Gab Miles You know, there are 2 other supervisors working with her, and Andrew Francis and Merv from La Trobe University, and how genes are switched on and switched off. And getting back to the Galapagos Islands, that your environment switches your genes on or off depending on what's happening. And are those switched on or switched off genes transferred to a child, to a fetus, depending on what's happened in that parent's life, the father's and the mother's life? And there's research to show that they can be. And these genes might switch on the production or secretion of particular proteins that are essential for a particular expression of personality. And so on. So you've really got to look at the internal aspects as well as the external. Okay. And so it's a very complicated picture, and I'm only aware of it, but I don't have the expertise to say much more. Yeah. And
yeah, that's crazy.
it is.
So the life you live would, both physically, mentally, and how you perceive the world, would almost determine how you're... If I was to coach you for the next 30 days on your habits, your nutrition, your sleep, your fitness, do you think you'd feel like a new person? I see this all the time. People getting excited after watching a YouTube video, listening to a podcast, or downloading a PDF. They have all this good information, but then they fail. A, because they don't know how to implement that information, or B, they haven't got anybody holding them accountable to implement that information in their day-to-day life. And that is exactly why I created the 30-day reset. So we can work together every single day for the next 30 days. I'm going to show you how to build a rock-solid morning routine. Make a workout routine that fits into your life, that works for you instead of against you. How to eat for your goals without tracking calories. We're going to work on the fun stuff, stress management, sleep, and then we're going to build a strong mindset so these habits last well after the 30 days is done. I am obviously excited to help you in this next 30 days. So let's get started. Stop watching the YouTube videos, podcasts, all that sort of stuff, and let's just start making real change that lasts for the next 30 days and beyond. Okay, stop waiting. Let's get into it. Let's go.